Hello, Scrufftards, welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And in this video, we will be taking a look at the battle for Veseloye that has become the gate to Glushkovo. And as far as I can tell, the maps are kind of static. We have a red blob on the northeastern flank here, but otherwise everything appears to be the same. The red hasn't really expanded, nor has the yellow, so it's been a static day, and not much was happening yesterday either on the maps. Just a quick brief here. We had Russia made an assault out of Koronevo towards Snagos and then continued toward Yubomovka. That failed. They continued the assault south of the river Snagos here and has potentially made it all the way out to the river over here. Maybe, according to Russian claims, pushed across at a village here and could potentially be over here, but that has not yet been confirmed. What is confirmed is that Russia pushed out from this river all the way to over here, and there's then a good chance of actually having reached the river and maybe have pushed across. As this was happening, Ukraine launched a second incursion into Kursk through here and through here. And here they pushed up to towards the highway that will take them to Glushkovo. That is this town. Over here they're pushing out, more than likely trying to reach a small village here, and probably gonna try and reach the river to cut off this small narrow section between that river, the border, and the rivers and lakes down here. Ukraine is also pushing out west to try and secure the border towns so that logistics can freely move from Ukraine into Russia and support the front line. But Ukraine has hit a snag along the way. They reached this town, Veseloye, and they have been fighting here for several days, and Russia has held the line in this small town of Veseloye, and it is this town that has become the gateway to reaching Glushkovo. And well, if Veseloye falls, Russia stands to lose this entire region, and so no wonder that this battle is as fierce as it is. And here you have Veseloye. Here you have where Ukraine pierced into Kursk. They moved out west towards these border towns, and they're moving up towards Veseloye. And this is where the fighting has been very fierce for a couple of days. As you can see, so there has been some interesting developments though during these days of combat. And as you can see here on this is the Andrew Perpetua map. This is the Ukraine control map. Here we have, well, we'll start off down here. Here we have a abandoned CV-90 facing south, so it's heading away from Veseloye, away from the combat. And that was geolocated on the 13th of September, as it was trying to leave the combat area. Then on the 19th of September, we had a Ukrainian advance this far, just outside this factory or farm or wherever it is, only a couple of 100 meters from this highway. And then on the 20th of September, we have had a CV-90 assault, where we had a CV-90 together with a tank on this road. They were heading east along the road and attacked north across this field towards this tree line, and we had a CV-90 reaching all the way and even dismounted troops into the windbreak here. So that is kind of interesting. We have a CV-90 moving south, away from the combat, and a week later, another CV-90 is moving east out of the town to engage Russians up in this windbreak. So something has happened in between, right? Quite clearly. Evidently, Ukraine is confident enough that they can utilize this highway to withdraw from combat when needed. But now on the 20th, a couple of days ago, they were actually pushing out of Veseloye along this highway, engaging Russians outside of the town to the east. And at the same time, we had Ukrainians, like I said, pushing up this way, threatening in this compound and the road over here. And interestingly enough, we have Zodiac Maps. He is a pro-Russian source, and his maps follow very much a pro-Russian narrative. Here we have the ISW map. They have Veseloye as red in Russian control, and everyone agrees to that. They also have this yellow, and that is Russian claims. So not confirmed, only claims. But as we can see here on Zodiac Maps, according to him, Ukraine has pushed out this way, just like we saw on Ukraine control map, more or less, cutting straight through these claimed Russian advances. So I think we can assume that these claims here are pretty much, like I said in another video, bullshit. This is not correct. But what we do know is that more than likely Ukraine is in control of this area east and south of Veseloye. And here we have Veseloye, like I said, and CV-90 abandoned at roughly over here, heading south, leaving the combat area, and then some days later we had CV-90 and a Leopard 2 leaving Veseloye along the highway here, moving up to somewhere around here and engaged targets up here. The CV-90 got across, and as it dismounted troops, it fired at more targets downrange somewhere over here. Quite interesting. So Ukraine was felt that they could utilize this road to exit the combat area, and now they are actually leaving the town, engaging targets outside of the town, and that should tell us something about this stretch of road here. That should or could indicate that Ukraine at the moment are able to bring in forces along this highway into the outskirts of town and can even push through town to engage targets over here. And that suggests that if they can utilize this road for such maneuvers, such actions, that they have actually pushed into town quite a ways and have secured this main highway. So Russia has probably been pushed back northward, and Ukraine can now actually move in confidently into town and through the town to engage targets in this area up here. And we'll take a look at the Ukraine control map. Like I said, they can push up along the highway here, and this is where we had the CV-90 that pushed across the field and engaged targets downrange and dismounted infantry into this windbreak as well. At the same time, we have Ukrainians pushing up this way towards whatever this is, trying to secure this compound in order to secure the road over here as well. So this, I think this is a bit of a conservative estimate of what Ukraine is controlling at the moment, because if they can push through town, that means they must have pushed further in and secured this highway, that they are maybe along the streets up here, denying the Russians any chance of actually engaging armor as they're pushing in and pushing through the town itself. And interestingly enough, if we take a look at the NOEL reports map, they do indicate this and have done so for quite some days. For the longest, they said Ukraine had the entirety of the town, but then they pulled that back to here. And this does line up with the idea that Ukraine can move in armor into town and actually push through town to engage Russians to the east up in the windbreaks over here. So this could actually be a very accurate estimation of where Ukraine is at the moment in Veseloye. If you compare with the Ukraine control map and Andrew Perpetua has Ukraine over here, as does the Ukraine control map, and both of them also have Ukrainians up in this area here. That would be here. But for Ukraine to move armor through that highway, that street, Ukraine must have pushed across north and must be operating further north in town. And just a quick look at the firm's maps as well. 19th, 20th, you can see where the fighting has been the heaviest. Lots of artillery strikes within Veseloye. This might be where that tank and CV-90 actually moved out, because we saw a lot of explosions around them. Russia probably trying to hit them with mortars and drones and what have you. And this is where Ukraine was pushing out towards this compound, and they were probably met with Russian artillery as they pushed north. 20th, a lot of fighting going on. This could actually be an indication that Ukraine has pushed north of that highway, that street, right? Doesn't that look like that could be an indication of the front line, since it seems to align here as well? And then you have some strikes over here, potentially at Ukrainian locations to prevent them pushing further north as well. Some fighting. This could be maybe Russian targets being hit as they're moving in, or maybe Ukrainians trying to move up to cut the highway and the supplies leading into town. And this is obviously Russia trying to hit Ukrainian targets over here. But as you can see, it kind of lines up with that Ukraine is further north in town than we might think. And as well that Ukraine is pushing up towards this compound and have been doing so for a couple of days. Interestingly enough, 21st, most of the action was over here to the east. Not much going on in terms of artillery and fires in Veseloye. And on the 22nd, this was from early morning, since I prepared this video during the early hours of today. Nothing going on in terms of massive fires, but that may change during the night and tomorrow, more than likely. But seems to have been a quiet day in terms of artillery, at least on the 22nd. So the significance of Ukraine securing that road and pushing out east along that road, well, they cut the main supply line leading into Veseloye from Glushkovo, meaning Russia has to rely on other avenues of approach to bring in supplies. One of which is from the northwest. This is a mud track, basically. This is not a road, this is muddy tracks crossing these fields and then goes into these fields. And it's roughly 1.3, maybe 1.5 kilometers for the Russians to push through muddy fields to bring in logistics with overloaded trucks and smaller vehicles and what have you. And the infantry manpower and what have you is gonna have to try and cross into this way as well. It's not gonna be fun once the mud season begins. They are gonna get bogged down, easy targets for drones, and it's gonna be difficult for Russia to bring in any resupplies, any reinforcements along this muddy tracts. What do you call it? Tracts? I don't know what you call it. Road, it's not a road, mud tracks leading from town all the way to up here for a mile. No, this is not going to be fun when the mud season settles in. And same thing basically for their second option, going straight north. From the southern edge of a town north of Veseloye, you have this. As you can see, this is not a road, this is mud tracks as well, leading out into the fields. And as we close in on Veseloye, it turns into, I mean, this is not a road. This is tracks cutting through grass, right? And what's the distance from Veseloye to the town? 2.3 kilometers, 1.5 miles. And yeah, this, just like going this way, this, when mud season settles, this won't be fun at all for the Russians, and their trucks, their vehicles will be extremely easy targets for Ukrainian drones. So all in all, it kind of seems as if the battle may be going in Ukraine's favor if it's true that they have pushed out something like this into town, and they're actually moving along the highway, the street this way, and can operate out here and pushing across to operate in this windbreak here. At the same time pushing up this way, maybe in a day or two be in control of this compound, And since Russia cannot bring in reinforcements this way anymore, can't bring in supplies this way anymore, they're stuck with this and this route like we just talked about, and that's not viable in the long run. Veseloye will fall, and then Ukraine is either 6 kilometers or roughly 3.5 kilometers from Glushkovo itself. Yeah, it's open ground. It's going to be difficult to move across here, obviously. But Russia will have very few places to defend between Veseloye and Glushkovo, meaning Russian defenses will probably be. There are trench lines in the area, so they will have to fall back from Veseloye to these trench lines located up here. And then it's a matter of how Ukraine will be able to cross all these open fields to reach those trench lines. But Russia won't have any defenses between Veseloye and the trenches up here. Crucially for Ukraine to make that push towards those trench lines, if they do grab Veseloye anytime soon, is to grab these two border towns as well. Because if Ukraine manages to do that, they unlock the logistics, the ability to bring in as much supplies and manpower as they need through the road network. As you can see here, this is Ukraine. Ukrainian border town of Vilfina. You have a railroad leading straight up to it, as well as other country roads and highways. So you can just, if you grab these two border towns, Ukraine can bring in all the supplies and manpower they need, bring it up along the highway here to Veseloye, and then make that push towards Glushkovo. And Ukraine has been coming in this way and pushing west, and they are right on the outskirts of Krasnotabrsky, or whatever it's called. And if we zoom in on these blobs, take a look. These are all geolocated attacks made by Ukraine, as well as Russian counterattacks into the area surrounding this crossroad, which is right between these two towns. So Ukraine is trying to push in here between the towns to isolate them and grab Krasnotabrsky. And something tells me the attack is coming from the north. I don't see why Ukraine would push across the road here when they can utilize cover moving up this way, and then rely on cover to come down south. As you can see, there's cover relatively close to that crossroad. So why make a move across the open fields when you can have cover all the way up to the towns and then attack through cover to gain access to the towns? So my guess is that we have a Ukrainian assault from the north into these two towns at the moment. Here you have Syriac maps for reference. If you compare it to Andrew Perpetua's map. But it seems likely to me that Ukraine made a push north and then came in this way to attack southward. Not sure why they would attack straight on across this road. That seems like suicide, but hey, you never know. This is a weird war after all. And that's the end of the video. Yeah, Veseloye, it's important. It's where Russia is currently holding the line, and if Veseloye falls, the road is open all the way to Glushkovo, quite literally. So, and I mean, if Ukraine can move armor through town, that should indicate that they have pushed well into town as well, and are about to push the Russians out of Veseloye, would be my guess. And those two optional routes into the town for Russia, they are not suitable to keep up a proper defense in the town for long. Logistics will break down eventually, and then Ukraine will take control of that town. But yeah, that's it. I hope you found it interesting. I hope I'll see you in the next one. And as always, go på marsch, Ukraine. Give them hell.